When New China was scarcely 1 year old, it dispatched the Chinese People's Volunteers to support the Democratic People's Republic of Korea in its life and death struggle against US imperialism. And as many of you know, Jack's own brother, Comrade Michael Shapiro, working for the Xinhua News Agency, also went with them and spent more than a year in Korea. We're very proud of that. Several 100,000 of those Chinese People's Volunteers, including Chairman Mao's own son, laid down their lives and are buried in Korea. Later, when the Vietnamese people were waging their righteous war against US aggression, China discreetly sent many thousands of troops to defend, run and rehabilitate the railways in the north of the country and to man the anti-aircraft defences of Hanoi and Haiphong, and this freed up their Vietnamese comrades in arms to head south to the front line. When the Algerian people rose in struggle against the French colonialists and proclaimed their provisional revolutionary government, China recognised and supported that government from the very day of its proclamation. Likewise, China was among the very first countries to assist and support the ANC in South Africa and the PLO in Palestine from the inception of their armed struggles. Have a look sometime at Nelson Mandela's autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom. It's a big book, but look at China in the index. Mandela will tell you that he sent his deputy Alfred Nzo to visit China in 1954, and that China's assistance in the preparation of the ANC's struggle began from that time. It was China that rendered the greatest and most decisive support to the liberation struggles in Mozambique and Zimbabwe. And on more than one occasion, Comrade Mao personally spoke out in support of the African-American struggle against racism in the United States. And indeed, China insisted that a delegation of the Black Panther Party, led by Huey P. Newton, should visit China 6 months before the visit of Richard Nixon. As the President of Zimbabwe told his fellow African leaders at the first China-Africa Summit held in Ethiopia in December 2003, China's policies have always been pro-Africa, pro-Third World, anti-imperial and anti-hegemonic. When the Soviet Union and the socialist countries of Central and Eastern Europe collapsed, it was to China that socialist Cuba turned to help it survive the special period. And today, with China's steadily rising economic strength, it is able to provide ever-increasing material support to those countries that seek to stand up against imperialism for their independence and their own development, be it Venezuela, or Ecuador, the Democratic Republic of Congo, or Belarus. It wasn't for nothing that Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez declared on arriving in China in September 2008, "We are in the land of Mao Zedong, and I pay tribute to him. I am a Maoist." Hey. This identity of interest was identified as far back as the days before the founding of the People's Republic, when Comrade Mao Zedong declared, in a speech on the 15th of June 1949, "This is a victory for the people of all China, and also a victory for the peoples of the whole world. The whole world, except the imperialists and the reactionaries in various countries, is elated and inspired by this great victory of the Chinese people. The struggle of the Chinese people against their own enemies and the struggles of the peoples of the world against their own enemies have the same meaning." And comrades, that's why we're holding this celebration tonight. In that same speech, with remarkable foresight, Chairman Mao warned as follows. He said, "The imperialists and their running dogs, the Chinese reactionaries, will not resign themselves to defeat in this land of China. They will continue to gang up against the Chinese people in every possible way. For example, they will smuggle their agents into China to sow dissension and make trouble. That is certain. They will never neglect these activities. To take another example, they will incite the Chinese reactionaries and even throw in their own forces to blockade China's ports. They will do this as long as it is possible. Furthermore, if they still hanker after adventures, they will send some of their troops to invade and harass China's frontiers. This too is not impossible. All this we must take fully into account. Just because we have won victory, we must never relax our vigilance against the frenzied plots for revenge by the imperialists and their running dogs. Whoever relaxes vigilance will disarm himself politically and land himself in a passive position. In view of these circumstances, the people all over the country must unite to smash resolutely, thoroughly, wholly and completely every plot against the Chinese people by the imperialists and their running dogs, the Chinese reactionaries. China must be independent. China must be liberated. China's affairs must be decided and run by the Chinese people themselves, and no further interference, not even the slightest, will be tolerated from any imperialist country. And from that day to the present, events have fully borne out Comrade Mao's analysis. In response to China's proletarian internationalist support to the Korean people, the United States deployed its 7th Fleet to the South China Sea, preventing the People's Liberation Army from liberating China's island province of Taiwan. And the reunification of Taiwan with the mainland remains the last unfinished business of China's cause of national liberation that began with the struggle against the British invaders and drug traffickers in 1840. The United States maintained an economic blockade and embargo on China from 1950 to 1972. From 1949 until today, imperialism seeks to send troops to invade and harass China's frontiers, in Mao's words, from the wars in Korea and Vietnam, to the instigation of terrorists in the border regions of Tibet and Xinjiang, to the attempts to surround China with hostile military bases under the pretext of the so-called war on terror, and to the constant encroachment of US espionage planes and ships in the South China Sea. Equally, whilst China does not seek to quarrel with any nation, but rather seeks friendship, cooperation and mutually beneficial trade, the People's Republic has never tolerated any interference from any imperialist country. China is indeed independent. China is indeed liberated. China's affairs are indeed decided and run by the Chinese people themselves. As Comrade Mao Zedong declared, ours will no longer be a nation subject to insult and humiliation. We have stood up. And we've heard those words that the Chinese people have stood up at this meeting tonight. And those words of Mao's have also resonated in recent days in Beijing. And if anybody has seen any of the film on television or on the internet of Thursday's parades in Beijing, both military and civilian, can they possibly deny that the Chinese are indeed a risen people today? As Comrade Hu Jintao said in his speech at that event, and the speaker from the embassy at the start of the meeting referred to some of this, but Comrade Hu Jintao said on Thursday as follows: 60 years ago today, the Chinese people finally won the great victory in the Chinese Revolution through bloody battles for more than 100 years. Here, Chairman Mao Zedong solemnly declared to the world the establishment of the People's Republic of China. Since then, the Chinese people have stood up, and the Chinese nation, which has a history of more than 5,000 years of civilization, has entered a new historic era of development and progress. In the past 60 years, the diligent and wise Chinese people of all ethnic groups have worked hard with one heart and one mind, withstood the tests of all kinds of difficulties, twists and turns and risks, made attention-grabbing great achievements, and written a brilliant and triumphant song of striving constantly to become stronger. Today, a socialist China that is oriented to modernization, to the world and to the future is standing toweringly in the Eastern world. The Chinese people are confident and capable of building their own country and are also confident and capable of making due contributions to the world.